Welcome, bienvenidos to MetamorphosisRox, and today on As Seen on Twitter, we're going to talk about a particular situation that I find very bothersome. As you can see on the screen, we have a person who loves the United States, has a little blue wave on, and I'll explain that a little later. Seems to be in the medical profession and loves cats. And this person made a tweet in response to some other tweet that I'm going to get to in a second, where they were talking about how older people who are remarkably active are on extra innings. Now, y'all know how I feel about ageism and how it bothers me when people just so casually throw away people of a certain age. And this is the reason why I decided to talk about this today. I don't know where we lose sight of the importance of our elders. And by the way, this happens in the opposite direction too. If a person is too young, all of a sudden, oh, well, they're too young to do this and that or the other. I'm going to concentrate on this particular example. Take a look at this person's bio, and it says they're a mom, they're a nurse, they're a sci-fi fan, a green thumb, a country music and blues fan, and a blue dot in a sea of red, meaning that they are a Democrat in a Republican area. And of course, Virginia, USA, meaning if you don't know, the latest governor for the state of Virginia happens to be a Republican and happens to be very much modeled in the ways of DeSantis and Abbott and others. So, I can't help but notice that they have hashtag resist, which relates to the blue wave, but then they have hashtag BLM. So you don't want to discriminate against people on the basis of color, but you, who happen to be a nurse, have no problem discriminating on people based on their age. Interesting. Also, before you give me a hard time over exposing a person on Twitter, I would never take somebody whose tweets are protected, but as you can see on the bio, there is no little lock next to their name, which means their account is public for anyone to see. And the same way that most people don't have a problem with their tweets used if the media says something about it, hopefully Miss Sandy here doesn't have a problem with me using her as an example of what I personally see as ageist. So you might be wondering what prompted this tweet. Well, Liam Long said, I'll be very frank, while I'm a Democrat and I love President Biden because he's a good guy, not a F clown, but frankly, I think he's a bit old to run again in 2024, right? My own opinion. And Sandy chimed in and said, I would like to see someone in the 50s to 65 age group run. I admire the commitment and dedication to be willing to be president at Biden's age, but it would be helpful to have a POTUS who relates better to the information age. There's also a saying we have at work about older people who are remarkably active. They're on extra innings. These are the folks who come in after a critical event and family is struggling to accept it, saying, quote, he just mowed the yard yesterday, end quote. I don't even know where to begin with this. Let's start with the fact that this is something, I don't know if you've noticed that lately I've been posting things about how we as a collective have issues with what we put out there about other people. For example, in the case of somebody that has any kind of mental ailment, we take some assumptions, which we used to call generalizations, and that's what we're running with. In the case of this particular tweet, though, older people who are remarkably active. I have been watching this unfold for many years, but I don't know if you have noticed yourself, we as a group, as a collective, as a society, as whatever you want to call it, are lasting longer and staying active longer. So why is it remarkable that somebody in their 70s and 80s is still walking, running, jogging, anything, doing any kind of exercise? But we make that as if it was the strangest thing. Now, As far as the critical event and saying, oh, he just mowed the yard yesterday, let me tell you a little story. I had a neighbor, and I loved this couple. They, in fact, were, the wife was the godmother to my sister. And like all my sisters got, my sister had two godmothers, one for baptism and one for confirmation. This one was the confirmation. And both godmothers treated me like if I was their goddaughter too. So they didn't treat me any different. And I am the baby of the family. So that felt really good. Now, her husband was in his 50s, was mowing the lawn like he did every freaking weekend. Now, the funny thing about him was that it was the first time I ever saw an adult reading cartoons. He would not miss. Every Sunday, you would catch him in the balcony reading. The cartoon section in the newspaper was separate, and he would be reading his cartoons. He said it kept him young and it kept him happy. Well, one Saturday, he's mowing the lawn, and in the middle of mowing the lawn, he drops dead. No warning, nothing. He was just he didn't even complain of having any pain or anything. Something happened. He got a heart attack, and that was it. He was 50. He was not 80. He was not 85. He was 50. This whole idea that you have to be a certain age to just drop is preposterous. How many sports figures haven't we seen that in their 20s and their 50s, in their 30s, they drop? And by the way, I'm talking about natural causes, not about accidents or anything like that. But we really need to get away from this whole idea that age means anything in terms of life and death. Too many people are dying younger and younger. I can tell you how many of my friends have already lost a sibling or a child. And this whole idea that it's remarkable that somebody in their 70s stays active doesn't take into consideration all the improvements we've had in medicine and health in the last 20, 30 years. Let me be very clear that I don't think everybody's going to agree with me in terms of whether or not the comments sounded ageist or not. But this was her answer. It's reality. We all die someday. And while I love seeing our patients live full lives into their 80s and 90s, the harsh truth is that the 80-plus population doesn't do very well with serious illness or injury. Losing an in-office POTUS would be destabilizing. All right, let's start with one thing. The process, the Constitution has a process by which if a POTUS was to die, there is a succession. Then the vice president would take over for the president, and then I can't remember what the process. Anyway, the bottom line is there is a system. It wouldn't be the first time we lost a president. Let's start there. But at the core of this is we have to remember who would be the option. I mean, the guy running for the Republicans so far as I know, the person that's running for the Republicans is Trump again. Trump is just as old. I think the difference between the two of them is like 3 years. Why is this even an issue in 2022 when the election is not until 2024? And this brings up something that really bothers me about Americans right now, and it is the politicization of the entire 4 years. Can we take a break? Can we not talk about politics for 5 minutes? And while we're at it, can we stop accepting ageism as a thing? This is why I brought this up. There is no reason why we have to keep harping on how we can't be misogynist, we can't be racist, we can't be sexist. But ageism is fair play. And again, I'm not just talking about people who are older, I'm talking about people who are younger too. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day.